Just like the NBA, we were on an all-star break for the past week. Sorry for the delay, but we are back, episode 123 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. And Brett, what a week it's been.
Yeah, Higgins, it's been a lot of fun this week. The NHL, some smaller conference tournaments have been getting underway, Higgins, but we finally got the big tournaments underway. The NBA is back, so we took a little break where there was a little lull. There was still a lot going on, though, as you mentioned.
Happy days with the NBA finally back as we're recording this on Wednesday night. A full slate on Thursday that we're going to get into in a second. Let's talk about how we did in episode 122, though, Brett. You and I each went 3-1. Surprisingly, my bet that didn't cash, though, was the heaviest favorite, Israel Adesanya, going up to light heavyweight in the UFC on Saturday. Lost to Jan Blachowicz. Interesting fight. Maybe we'll see them fight again, but this isn't the only thing we're going to hear from this UFC 259 that took place on Saturday. We're going to get into that a little later.
Yeah, a lot of excitement in that Saturday night UFC card, Higgins, as you mentioned. And what did I tell you about those Colorado Buffaloes, Higgins? That minus 11? I said, lock it in, baby. Colorado came through for me. I don't know. They're like the third favorite in the Pac 12 tournament, Higgins. I think that's a little disrespectful to the Buffaloes.
I think that Pac-12 cannibalizes itself every year, so I think you might be onto something there. Colorado maybe make a run for the conference championship. Anything can happen in March. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, USC's really good, don't get me wrong. Stanford's, I think, a really strong team. UCLA, I'm not very sold on. Colorado, look out. Look out for the Buffaloes.
Look out for them. Maybe they're a good example of what our Beginners Boulevard is whenever they do play next. We're going to be talking about the double bet. Now, for bettors like Brett and I who do unit betting and stay rather consistent with our unit betting, when we say that we're going to place a double bet, that typically shows extra confidence, extra due diligence that has the numbers in our favor as well. And it's simply we're doubling whatever our standard bet is. So if we're going to typically place one unit on a bet, this time we're placing two.
Yeah, double bet. Good term to know. Good for people to understand what someone is talking about when, if someone says, I double bet that, now you can understand what they mean because I know I would have needed help with that, Higgins, but you just explained it very clearly, so I could understand. So I'm sure everyone listening got that as well.
And it's often the confidence that ends up relaying into a double bet. When typically when bettors have confidence on a certain line, you see the lines reflect that. So maybe you're betting 2 units to try to get a full unit back in return on a bet that you're just really confident about. The odds might not be in your favor, but you're just very confident on the result. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah, and it would make a lot of sense to, if you think something's way off, to maybe take advantage of that, so to speak. Obviously, you could still lose, so don't do anything crazy that would hurt your bankroll. But if it's within your means, maybe it makes sense to take advantage if you find a big mistake by the sports books.
Let's jump into the NBA that we were talking about at the top of the show. It's finally back after the All-Star break is over. Couple games on Wednesday night as we're recording. 11 games on the slate on Thursday. Brett, one of the games you're on is probably the one I'm most excited for. I'm leaning one way. I like this Nets minus 2.5 that I'm seeing. I couldn't pull the trigger for the show, though. It might be a social media pick that I post day of on Thursday, but Celtics Nets, that should be a fantastic game to start the second half of the NBA regular season.
Well, you're leaning Nets. I'm leaning Celtics, Higgins. I'm actually getting them at +3 at -110 here in New Jersey. I know the graphic might say +2.5 at -105. That might be the Oregon line, Higgins. So hopefully, you can time travel over here to New Jersey. Maybe get that -110 juice instead. But you wouldn't need time travel. You could just get a normal plane. You could make it before tip off. I believe in you.
Hey, you live 3 hours in the future of me on the East Coast compared to the West Coast, so maybe those sports books know something that Oregon doesn't. That's why it's moved to +3 instead of being +2.5. I'll make sure that the graphics for you are showing the New Jersey odds that you're going to be on, though, as opposed to mine. Brett, one of the games I really like on Thursday is a matchup between the two Florida teams, the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat.
Yeah, Higgins, before we jump to Magic Heat really quick, I'm just going to talk about the Boston +3 side really quickly. They get Marcus Smart back. Kevin Durant will be out for Brooklyn. They add Blake Griffin to that rotation. It's another new person learning defensive rotations, offensive plays, spacing, getting used to playing with these guys. I think Boston coming out of break, adding Marcus Smart, I just like the 3-point dog in this one, so that's why I'm playing that side really quickly. But yeah, let's hop to that Magic Heat game because that should be a lot of fun. Also, we also heard Nikola Vucevic was being shopped around, but the Magic have denied that. So maybe he'll be a little amped up to get back on the court for the Magic.
Yeah, the Magic and the Heat, neither have been outstanding against the spread this year. They're basically tied both at 16, 19, and 1 against the spread this year. So I'm going with the hometown favorite, the Heat -6.5. The one thing that does have me worried is this news that we found out about Myers Leonard over the weekend. He's out indefinitely, been banned by the team. Bam Adebayo, the other center for Miami, he's listed as day to day. If he doesn't play and they're down both big men, that could be hard for the Heat to end up coming back on. But if you look at how the Heat have actually played more recently coming into the All Star break, they've been really good against the spread. They've been 7-3 in their past 10 games against the spread. A lot of their poor record in their games against the spread early in the season is just that. It was they started terribly in the beginning of the season. So now that they have their legs under them, now that they are in mid-season form, I expect the Heat -6.5 to be a smart play here.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler being out early in the year definitely hurt this team. The Bam Adebayo news is definitely something to watch, so that is something I'll keep my eye on before I take any side on this game. But if they've Bam and Butler in, I expect them to beat Orlando. Without Bam, this one could go either way, Higgins.
Yes, it really could. And I mean, Orlando Magic haven't been horrible against the spread this year. I mean, recently in their past 10 games they're 6-4. These two teams though, the Heat, I think, were just coming off of a short off season from playing in that championship against the Lakers, and they had a little slow going in the beginning of the NBA season. They lost their opening game to the Magic. It was a 6-point game. I don't expect it to go nearly the same though, because we're seeing a much different Miami team like that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up some good points. I'm going to look ahead, though, Higgins. I'm going to look ahead to the team that's leading the East this year, the Philadelphia 76ers, and they take on the Chicago Bulls on Thursday night. Chicago is -2.5, Higgins. Now, you may look at that and say, why are the Bulls the favorite over the team that's the top seed in the East? Well, the Sixers are without Simmons, without Embiid, coming out of the All Star break, and Zach Levine and company have been really good this year. Thad Young has been fantastic for the Bulls this year. So I really like Chicago in this spot with Philly's two All Stars out due to COVID protocol.
Brett, do you have spyware on my computer? Because the reasoning you just gave, I looked at the 76ers. I was going to be on the opposite side of this on you, and you gave the exact reason of why I'm staying off. I checked out. That's an interesting line. What's going on? Oh, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are out for this game. Makes sense. I'm going to stay away, especially since the Bulls are the third best team in the NBA against the spread so far this year.
Yeah, exactly. The Bulls are pretty good against the spread. And I just think the two superstars missing for Philly is too much, Higgins.
And then a late game I'm interested in, can't find a side on right now, but that Warriors Clippers game should be fun. That should be a fun game.
Warriors Clippers could be good. Uh, I guess I'll tune into Knicks Bucks. That'll obviously be on in the New York market. And I'll be interested to see if the Knicks can keep up their first half success, Higgins. Julius Randle, a great first half. RJ Barrett playing pretty well as well. Emmanuel quickly has been a nice surprise for the Knicks. So I'm probably tuning into the Knicks a little bit this second half of the season as well, seeing what they can do.
Definitely been a surprising team this year, that young Knicks team, absolutely. Let's jump into the college basketball scene, though, Brett. On Thursday, we have teams that are absolutely playing for big implications, going to the dance type implications. And so Syracuse got a much needed win against North Carolina State earlier on Wednesday. I actually woke up on the West Coast to find out that they were pretty damn close to tip off by the time I was getting ready to check in for work, which is surprising. But yeah, we have basketball all day long. It's one of the things that everyone has to love about March Madness, right?
Yeah, big day for the Qs. Actually, Butler came back from double digits against Xavier put to push Joe Lenardi into pushing Cuse into the last four in Higgins. So,
Ooh.
Butler Bulldogs might actually be Syracuse's favorite team, though we have harsh feelings from the Arenze Onawaku years.
Let's jump into some of these games on Thursday, though, Brett. I mentioned Syracuse playing on Wednesday. Well, they're back in action on Thursday against the Virginia Cavaliers. And for our listeners that tune in regularly, you may remember recently Brett took a bold stance and took the Tar Heels against the Orange. And although he may have lost the bet, the Orange won the day. This is a bet a little bit from the heart that I'm doing as well. I'm going to take UVA -5. Now, the data points towards this a little bit better, though. I mean, Virginia and Syracuse, when they played earlier in the season, Virginia just trounced them. Virginia was the 8th ranked team of the at the time, and they won 81-58. So, -5 neutral location. It makes sense. Syracuse has been streaky all year long. It just depends what orange team shows up.
Well, fun fact, Higgins. Syracuse hasn't lost in Greensboro in 2 years. We are 2-0.
Mm.
We actually snuck in that game before the world ended. So we beat North Carolina and then we beat NC State in Greensboro. Back to back games, but about a year apart. So maybe that's a good omen for Cuse, and we keep that going as well. Also, Syracuse has some fun history against Virginia in March, and I'm looking forward to that. So I couldn't back Virginia because my heart was too emotionally invested in this game, Higgins, and if I was also financially invested, I may literally die. So we don't want that.
Well, plus, based on your background, it's hard to give an impartial front. I mean, I only have one Syracuse hat over here. I see you got an auto and a banner, maybe a little flag. It's a little harder for us to talk about Syracuse objectively on this show, I
I think
think.
it's just a Mets. It's a Mets flag, but that's okay. But yeah, speaking of Syracuse, let's talk about some former rivals in the Big East. Higgins, Georgetown takes on Villanova tomorrow. Nova -8. They're the higher seed, but they have some big injuries. Justin Moore is out. Gillespie is out. I think those are two very obviously key players for Villanova. So I like Georgetown with the points here. Now, I think Villanova advances. I think they have more talent. maybe they're slightly better coached. I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from Patrick Ewing. He spent years as an assistant learning from Van Gundy and Steve Clifford, and he's been in the NBA and played for great coaches, so he's obviously knows his basketball as well. But Jay Wright and Nova are just a powerhouse program, and I think they get it done. But I think 8 is too many points without your starting point guard and another key player in Justin Moore.
Those injuries could affect this big. I mean, I think that's what's affecting the line because Villanova won near the beginning of the season in December by 13, and then they won in January by 10, or sorry, early February by 10. So 8 without Gillespie, especially who tore his MCL, I believe. It's going to be a little hard to get those larger margin wins, especially against a rival, especially against Patrick Ewing, who knows exactly what the Big East tournament means, knows Madison Square Garden very well, knows how to play things to his advantage maybe in that arena for his team. Who knows? Maybe he can get them some extra ice in their water buckets or something.
Definitely hope he can get a little extra ice, or I mean, I hope he gets like a nicer locker room or something. I hope they throw him a bone.
Should be interesting. Should be interesting. I'm going to take another pick in college basketball, though. Traveling down south. I guess you can say it's traveling down south. I mean, it is the SEC. And, Brett, we're going to talk about a line that I do not expect to be the same by the time they're listening to this, and that's kind of why I'm taking it. Mississippi State plus 2.5 against Kentucky, and we're looking at this right now, and Mississippi State at plus 2.5 is plus 108. Kentucky's been horrible against the spread this year. I mean, they are 9 and 15 bad, only cover 37.5% of the time. Now, Mississippi State's not outstanding, but they at least cover over 50% of the games, 14 and 13. So, plus 2.5. Do I think that Mississippi State wins? Maybe. I think there's a good chance that they could potentially win this game, and being the underdogs as a 14 and 13 team against a team that's 9 and 15. I don't know. The Bulldogs should be a little disrespected by that, I think. And with this value, how can you not take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up some good points, Higgins. This is an automatic stay away game for me because I think everything you say is valid, but I can't bet Mississippi State against Kentucky in basketball. Like, you just see that, and you're like, ooh, I'd rather just hold on to my $10 and save it for a rainy day. So I appreciate your courage jumping on this, Higgins. I can't do it personally.
This was a double overtime game when these two played in the regular season. That was back on January 2nd. Kentucky did win 78 to 73, so that would cover, but it's a double overtime scenario. That's two scenarios potentially that the game could have been ended and Mississippi State would have potentially covered if it wasn't a three-pointer that would have won the game. I don't know. I think that this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be interesting, and while Siri may not let you physically press the button to place the bet against Kentucky, it's just not letting you. Good thing about the Android market is it'll let me. It'll
It's
let
just
me.
not working. I don't know. My iPhone's not working. But honestly, Higgins, I love the logic, and I'm going to prove it to you because in this next game, Texas Tech versus Texas, Texas Tech beat Texas in a very similar fashion. It was actually a crazy buzzer beater by Mac McClung. And, that was a huge win for Texas Tech. But I think Texas responds, Higgins. I think they come back. They're a little more fired up. This game was so close last time. They almost won at Tech. Like, this one's going to be in Kansas City, I believe, is where the Big 12 tournament is. So, neutral site, I think advantage Texas because they're the team that's going to try and make adjustments from the last game. So UT plus 106 on the money line, Higgins. Sign me up for the plus 106 odds. I'm all in.
This game was so good the first time around that it was a money line magic. We'll see. Will it be good enough the second time around? I mean, we've seen Andrew Jones hit a buzzer beater, a man that has climbed and fought his way back onto that court. We saw Mac McClung hit that shot that you mentioned. That was the money line magic. Both of these teams have the capability. It should be a very, very interesting late night game in Kansas City for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned both of them really good teams, so it should just be a fun game in general. And both these teams could be pretty dangerous in March, Higgins. Do I think either can win? It'll be tough, but do I think these teams can beat just about anyone on any given night? Yeah, they're really talented teams, Higgins. Tons of highly rated recruits, some NBA talent, so they have all the pieces you need to win a game in March.
Now, I do want to just bring this up because we mentioned it at the top of the show. The Colorado Buffaloes also do play on Thursday night. As we are recording, we do not know who they are playing, though. That is still to be determined based on the outcomes that are going to happen on Wednesday night. What do you think your chances are of those Buffaloes, though? You mentioned it at the top.
Well, Higgins, I guess if it's Stanford, I like them to win. But I like Stanford too. Bryce Wills, 914, and Zaire Williams is a very highly touted player. He's really skilled. He kind of plays the 3-4 at the next level and does that as well for Stanford. So they're talented. I would take Colorado as a slight favorite, but we'll have to see what the actual line comes out to be before I bet on that game.
As we talk about this, though, Cal is beating Stanford in the first half of that game. I'm sure that's who Colorado is rooting for.
Yeah, Colorado would be thrilled to see Cal there. That would be that would be very nice for Colorado fans.
Wait, actually, or would they? Colorado beat Stanford in both of their matchups. They lost to California in one of their matchups and beat them in the other. So do you want the team that you went 1-1 with? It's really hard to beat a team 3 times compared to that rubber match that you're going into. There's definitely more motivation for that.
I'd be okay to see Cal. Cal's pretty much an auto fade, Higgins.
I agree. I agree. Let's jump into our money line magic, though, Brett. I said we were going to talk more about UFC 259, and we're going to. The fights on Saturday were stupendous. There were 3 belt fights specifically, and it was the first belt fight of the night that was where we're going to pick this up, though. Peter Yan against Aljamon Sterling. In the 4th round, the two are basically in the center of the octagon. Sterling puts his knee down as they're grappling, kind of like wrestlers. And Yohn, after the ref verbally says he's down, Yohn knees Sterling in the head, an illegal knee to the head. Sterling goes down immediately and needs medical attention, pretty much, and they discuss it. Not only is Peter Yan disqualified, Sterling is the new champion at the bantamweight level. Now, that is a rough way to become a champion. Sterling says they're going to run it back, but dirty move by Yan. Yan deserved to lose that belt, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so, Higgins. You don't want to see dirty fights, and it's unfortunate. So hopefully they run it back and we get a good clean fight and we can watch it again.
And that was the fight of the 3 championship fights that had the closest odds. That was the closest to being even. So we'll see how that necessarily goes if they do come back out. Sterling says he's up for it. We'll see how long it takes him to recover, though, potentially from the injuries that he sustained on Saturday. Let's jump back right out of it, though. I mean, that was a dark way to spend Saturday watching that happen. Luckily, there were two more fights after, so it didn't end on that sour note.
Yeah, that's good.
Today's podcast, though, is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co, and be sure to add our podcast at the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of your application. Brett, let's just jump right into some hockey, though, as we had a very good weekend for hockey while the NBA was on their All-Star break. The NHL continued, and there were some fantastic games. We're starting to see some disparity of these teams at the bottom of their divisions, though. Some teams look like they might be phoning it in, maybe?
You think, Higgins? I don't know, but I definitely think you're right. The cream is rising to the top, and the whatever sinks to the bottom is sinking to the bottom fast, and that's kind of where you'll find me, Higgins. The New York Islanders are really good this year, Higgins. It pains me to say that. The Rangers, we're okay. I'll give us okay. Um, you look away, but I'm gonna say okay. And the Devils are not very good, and the Rangers actually just beat up on them, so that's how you know they're not very good. So I think the Islanders, who actually in their last game against the Devils not too long ago, just a little bit over a week ago, only won by a goal. I think they get an empty netter this time, Higgins, and I'll take that my shot at the empty netter for plus 125 odds.
I was intrigued by that line, too. I was intrigued by that one. The Devils haven't really been able to put the wheels in motion quite yet this season. Kind of reminds me a lot of the Buffalo Sabres. They have some pieces. They're young. They're just not quite. The chemistry's not quite there. They don't have the full roster to fight with multiple lines, in my opinion. I'm gonna stay with that division though, and the Washington Capitals against the Philadelphia Flyers, I expect, is going to be a fantastic game. They did play recently in a one-off, a rescheduled game from earlier in the season, and the Capitals did win 3-1 in Philadelphia. Each of these two teams did have a game after that. Now they're going to revisit each other again, so it's almost like a back-to-back between the two of them. Not even quite a full week's difference since the last game that they played, and I don't expect Philadelphia to lose at home again against the Capitals. If this game was in Washington, I'd probably be on Washington and take them, but I'm going to be on Philadelphia on the money line at minus 105. The Flyers are 7-3-2 at home, so they play much better in Philadelphia, obviously. I mean, Washington's good on the road with an identical record on the road that Philadelphia has at home, but I'm taking this because I think the home team's going to win. Like I said, if this was in Washington, I'd be taking the Capitals in this scenario.
Yeah, well, it's because Kevin Hayes is at home, so he's gonna score. So the Flyers are gonna win. That's what happens, Higgins. Every time the Flyers are home, Kevin Hayes scores. Those are the rules. I don't write them, but that's the rules.
I don't make them, I just follow them.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So that's an interesting game. Also, just to be clear, I am also a Flyers fan. I've mentioned this on different podcasts in the past, though. So we mentioned it with we're up front about when we are partisan. I went to Syracuse. Brett went to Syracuse. I grew up rooting for the Flyers. Do I obviously want them to beat the Capitals anyways? Yes. But if this game was in Washington, like I said, my money would be on Washington because I truly believe the home team's going to win in this scenario. A spot where I don't really know who's going to win, but I expect there to be a lot of scoring. The Chicago Blackhawks against the Dallas Stars. And if you just look at how these two teams play, 5.5, just not enough. The goalie play isn't strong. They both have offenses that are getting in sync and are very capable of putting up at least 3 goals in a game. And the last time that these two teams played, Dallas won 6-1 on Monday night. or on Tuesday night. So I'm going to take over 5.5 at plus 105. Brett, this has been a theme of ours all NHL season. If there is an over 5.5 that has positive value, it's hard for me to stay off of it, especially when the due diligence is there of these teams covering their overs more than they hit their unders. And on average, Chicago scores 3 goals a game, Dallas scores 2.8. So right there, that would technically hit the over if they just hit their averages, even though you
There
can't
you
really
go.
score point 0.8 of a goal.
Although the point eight goal would be nice, Higgins. That would really help you out. But yeah, I agree, Higgins. You mentioned it. The over 5.5 with plus value. That's something you and I both like, and I've actually bet on Blackhawks stars over 5.5 on this podcast before, so I'm glad you get your shot at it as well.
Dallas on the road, they're only 2-5 against overs. They hit a lot more unders when they're on the road. But luckily, this game's in Dallas.
Yeah, there we go. Good news.
Before we get out of here, Brett, there's just like there's a loaded slate in the NBA on Thursday. There's about 5, 6 games that we didn't talk about in the NHL. Any of those stand out to you that you just couldn't find value to place a bet on?
Higgins, there's some interesting ones, I think. Predators Hurricanes should be fun to watch. Canadians Flames should be interesting. I think if you're looking to parlay some winners, the Lightning should beat the Red Wings. Bruins, I'd probably take over the Rangers. The Penguins over the Sabres. Maybe, I didn't try this, but maybe you could parlay those three for plus value. That might be something to look into.
That Tampa Bay Detroit game intrigued me, partly because Detroit is the home underdog, and on the puck line they're plus 1.5 at, I believe it was plus 115. I don't trust Detroit. I've said this a number of times. I just don't trust Detroit, so I'm staying away from them. But it's always interesting when you see the puck line and the team that has the minus 1.5 favorite spot has juice. You're not going to get the full return. It's really ambitious for a sports book to say, I don't think that Tampa Bay is just going to win by one. I think that they're going to win by at least one, and that's why your return on that bet is not going to be good. But you look at them at minus 385 on the money line. I agree, that is definitely screaming parlay partner to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first team I'd be looking at for my parlay partner.
Let's jump into the Levy lock and pick of the pod, though, Brett. You hit your Levy lock with the Colorado Buffaloes in episode 122. You're 9-10 in 2021. Are you going to hit 500 this episode?
Ooh, that would be nice, Higgins. I really
I'm at
hope so.
I'm at 7-11. I got some work to do with my pick of the pods.
7-Eleven's a good spot though. You can get, a lot of goods there. Your
Seven
Diet
up.
Coke. Yeah, exactly. Whatever you need. But I was on an animal with horns in the last episode, and they won for me. So I'm going with the animal with horns route, Higgins. I'm taking the Chicago Bulls. They
The
take
mascot
on,
route. I like it.
yeah, the
I like it.
mascot route. No other logic here, just mascots. No, that's not true. The Bulls take on the Sixers without Embiid and Simmons coming out of All Star break. I like this spot for Chicago, Higgins. I think the Bulls without their the Sixers without their two All Stars will struggle in this one against Chicago.
Hey, you're joking about the mascot thing. I'm full serious. My sister, I remember still, she was like 4 years old. We did like a family football pool. She went strictly based off the mascots, and she went like 14-2 that weekend. It was just based off, oh, I like Dolphins better than whoever. Like, just, it's sometimes you got to break it down simple like that. It's a gut feeling type thing. You know what I mean?
Uh, should I bet on the Dolphins? Is that what you're telling? All right, Dolphins it is.
Dolphins 2022 Super Bowl champions. Heard it here first.
I heard it here first.
That's not my pick of the pod, though. That would take a long time for that pick of the pod to catch. My pick of the pod is the Blackhawks Stars over 5.5 at plus 105. I like the value. I like that both of these teams, if you combine their goals per game average, that's over this 5.5 over. I like that they just played on Tuesday and it was a 6-1 game. I don't expect Chicago to only be held to one goal in back-to-back games either. That offense has been playing a lot better. So let's see how this goes. Can Patrick Kane, can Joe Pavelski each get one in? Maybe their teammates each get one or two more, and we get ourselves a 4-2 game, maybe a 3-3 overtime matchup. I could see it. I could see it.
Yeah, I definitely think Blackhawk Stars will be in the realm of that 5 to 6 for sure. So I think you will be watching that third period. Very interesting. Hey, very interested, Higgins. Hopefully, the fourth quarter will be exciting for me too, and we both walk out winners.
We will also have some social media picks, though, whether it be on Thursday, like I said, maybe that Colorado line really speaks to one of us and we decide to put something out. Maybe on Friday or Saturday we have some other picks as well. Make sure to follow us at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 123 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.